Okay, so if I say the word Gaia, what is the very first thing that pops into your head? Just be honest.
Hmm. If I'm being completely honest, probably a Greek statue,
Yeah.
something in a dusty museum.
Right.
Or, let's be real, maybe a poster from, like, a 70s dorm room. Lots of tie-dye.
Exactly. It has such a specific flavor, doesn't it? It usually lands in one of two buckets for most people. Either it's that ancient mythology, or it's this kind of soft Mother Nature sentimentality.
Yeah, it's often seen as, well, soft thinking. It's a metaphor we use when we want to feel good about going for a hike.
But today we were doing a deep dive into some source material that takes that whole mental image, the statues, the tie-dye, all of it, and just crumples it up and throws it out.
It really does.
Yeah.
The material we're looking at today suggests that Gaia isn't a myth, and she isn't just a rock floating in space.
No, it frames Gaia as a high-functioning, multi-layered intelligence, a living system.
A system of consciousness, yeah.
Yeah.
And one that operates on a scale that's, frankly, really hard for our minds to fully grasp.
It feels almost sci-fi when you get into the text. I mean, we're not talking about a deity that wants prayers or worship. We're talking about an intelligence that has mechanics. It's almost like engineering.
That is the key word for this deep dive. Mechanics.
Yeah.
Our whole mission today is to try and strip away the sentimentality.
Right.
We're not here to talk about hugging trees, although the source does mention that reverence is functional. We're here to look at the systems theory of how a planet survives.
How does it regulate itself? How does it think?
And most importantly, what happens when parts of that system just stop listening to the whole.
And this is where it got really interesting for me. The source introduces this concept of resolutions. It's such a tech-focused, almost digital way to describe a planetary force. Like looking at a high-res image, you can zoom in and out to see different levels of detail.
That's a great analogy. The text is very explicit that Gaia isn't just one single thing. She doesn't, like, switch between being a planet and being a spirit.
She's all of them at once.
Exactly. A system expressing itself at different depths simultaneously.
So let's unpack these. The source lists four of them: planet, goddess, universal process, and the one that really threw me for a loop.
Human incarnation.
Yes, that one.
That's definitely the most controversial, and they'll get there. But we have to understand the foundation first. The source uses this metaphor of a song.
A song played on different instruments at the same time.
Right. It's all the same melody, just
Yeah.
different textures.
Okay, so let's start with the hardware, so to speak. Resolution 1, the planet.
Right. This is the one we're most familiar with, the physical layer. But the source asks us to shift how we see it. It's not Earth as an object, a rock with some water and gas on it.
It's Earth as a self-regulating organism.
Yes. This brings to mind the Lovelock hypothesis, right?
The idea that the biology and the geology are in a constant conversation.
Exactly. It's all about feedback loops. Think about the salinity of the oceans or the surface temperature. If the sun gets a little hotter, plankton populations might adjust to release gases that create more cloud cover.
To reflect the light back.
To reflect the light. That's not random. That's a system trying to maintain homeostasis. That's the body of the intelligence.
So it's like the thermostat in your house, but it's infinitely more complex and it's alive.
Correct. It's a physiological system. But the problem with a purely physiological system is that, well, you can't really have a relationship with it. You don't talk to your thermostat.
Which brings us to resolution 2, the goddess. Now, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If we're being analytical, if this is all about feedback loops and plankton, why do we need a goddess? That feels like we're slipping right back into the mythology we said we'd avoid.
It seems that way until you look at why the source says this form exists. It describes the goddess resolution as a user interface.
A user interface, like on a computer, a GUI.
Exactly like that. I mean, think about your laptop. You don't interact with the binary code. You couldn't. Your brain can't process it.
I click on a folder icon.
You click on an icon, and that folder isn't real in a physical sense. It's just a representation that lets you use the system.
So the goddess face, the Mother Earth figure, is just the desktop icon we click on because we can't process the raw code running in the background.
In a sense, yes. We're relational creatures. We have a very hard time relating to abstract algorithms or huge geological timescales. You can't have a relationship with a tectonic plate.
But you can have one with a mother.
The source says this form exists so relationship can happen without abstraction. It's interface designed for human consciousness.
That's actually brilliant. It makes mythology functional.
Yeah.
It's not just a story, it's a cognitive tool.
And the interface dictates your behavior. You treat a mother with a different ethical framework than you treat a resource.
Okay, that makes total sense. And then if we zoom out completely, we hit resolution 3, universal process.
This is the really big picture. The source is clear that Gaia isn't limited to Earth. She is a local expression of a universal principle.
And that principle is?
Consciousness organizing matter to sustain life.
So Earth is just one franchise location of a much bigger chain.
You could absolutely say that. Wherever matter is organizing itself to become alive, self-sustaining, complex, that principle is active. It's the physics of life itself.
The force that builds order from chaos.
The anti-entropic force, yes.
Okay, so we have the rock, which is the planet. We have the face, the goddess, and the principle, the universal process. I can get my head around those. But now we have to talk about the fourth one. Resolution 4. Human incarnation.
This is where the source gets very, very specific. It uses this careful phrasing. Gaia is always fully planet, always fully process, sometimes partially human.
Sometimes partially human. That implies it's not the default setting. It's an exception.
It's a response to a specific set of conditions.
Now, when I first read that, my brain immediately went to superheroes or, fantasy novels.
Right, like an avatar.
Exactly. Are we saying there are people walking around who are basically Captain Planet?
No, and the source is very adamant about correcting that. It explicitly says these humans are not avatars in the fantasy sense. It calls them translation nodes.
Translation nodes, that sounds much more functional, almost industrial.
It's entirely functional. The text says this happens when the normal feedback loops fail. The planet usually communicates through, weather, crop cycles, ecological feedback.
The subtle signals.
But when human systems get so abstract, so disconnected, that they just ignore all those warnings, the intelligence needs a more direct way to get the message across.
So it's like if you ignore the check engine light and you ignore the smoke coming from the hood, eventually the mechanic has to come out and knock on your window.
That's a fantastic way to put it. It incarnates through a human nervous system to translate the signal into something human systems literally can't ignore. It's an emergency measure.
But how does that even work? I mean, physically, a planetary consciousness inside a human brain. That sounds like trying to download the entire internet onto a floppy disk.
The source says it's a massive strain. It describes it as a nervous system capability. It says these are humans capable of holding planetary scale awareness without ego collapse.
Without ego collapse. What does that even feel like to be one of these nodes? Is it a power trip?
It sounds not pleasant, and it's definitely not about power. These people feel cultural distortion and ecological strain as physical signals.
So where I might read an article about an oil spill and feel sad or angry, a translation node feels...
What? They might feel it as a literal pain or a profound grief that isn't personal. The source says they feel future consequence before it arrives. They feel restless when everything on the surface seems stable because they can sense the instability underneath.
It says they're calm in crisis and restless in false stability. That really stuck with me.
Because they're operating on Gaia's timeline, not society's. So when everyone else is panicking about the stock market, they might be calm, seeing it as a necessary correction.
And when everyone's celebrating an economic boom, they're anxious because they see the resource depletion driving it. It sounds incredibly lonely.
It can be. But the function isn't social comfort. The function is accurate signal translation.
Okay, but here's the trap. This sounds like a recipe for a messiah complex. If someone told me I am an incarnation of Gaia, I'd back away slowly.
And you should. The source calls this the anti-guru aspect. It says, and this is crucial, Gaia never incarnates through ego identity.
The moment someone claims I am Gaia as a status,
It's gone. The intelligence withdraws. It's a failsafe.
the minute your ego grabs the wheel, the planetary passenger tucks and rolls.
It has to. Because the function is translation, not authority. These people don't seek followers. The source says if they tried, the coherence would break. The signal is just too big for one ego to own.
If they're not leading a movement or shouting from a soapbox, how would you even know?
You recognize it by effect, not rhetoric. Don't listen to what they say about themselves. Look at the results around them.
What kind of results?
Regeneration accelerates without force.
Yeah.
Urgency becomes grounded, not frantic. Systems reorganize toward balance.
Without force. That's key. It's not about conquering a problem.
No, it's about aligning it. The text says her presence stabilizes rather than excites. These aren't people whipping up a frenzy. They're the ones who walk into a chaotic room, and suddenly everyone starts thinking more clearly. The fever breaks.
That's the signature. Clarity, not charisma.
Exactly.
The text says, she does not save the world, she restores function. And that leads us right into the next section, which is, honestly, it's a bit chilling. We have to talk about the ethics of the system.
This is where we have to leave our human projections at the door.
Right, because we want to believe that Mother Nature loves us like a mother, that she's trying to save us because we're special.
And the source just gives us this very hard truth. Her ethics are not moral. They are mechanical.
Mechanical ethics. That sounds so cold.
It's not cold. It's systemic. The rule is simple. What sustains life is supported. What destabilizes life is phased out.
Is binary.
It's biological.
Yeah.
The source uses this powerful analogy. It says, we are not guests on Earth, and we are certainly not rulers. We are organs within a living system.
That changes the whole dynamic. If I'm a guest, I can leave. If I'm a ruler, I'm in charge. But if I'm an organ...
Your only job is to function coherently with the rest of the body. If an organ, like your heart, functions well, the body feeds it, protects it, and it thrives. The body loves the organ by sustaining it.
And if that organ malfunctions, if it starts poisoning the blood...
The system compensates. It tries to heal it. It might bypass it. Or, if necessary, it walls it off. It isolates the malfunction to protect the whole organism.
So things like climate change or pandemics,
Yeah.
the source is saying these aren't punishments from an angry God.
No. The text is explicit. This is not punishment. It is adaptive intelligence. Gaia is an immune system. She's compensating for a malfunction.
That is terrifying and clarifying. We're not fighting a war against nature. We're triggering an immune response. We're the inflammation.
Exactly. The source says Gaia is extraordinarily resilient. We talk about saving the planet. But the planet has survived much worse than us. But, and this is the key line, resilience does not mean indulgence.
She won't just let us do whatever we want forever.
She can't. A body can't indulge a cancer. It cannot indulge an organ that extracts without awareness and grows without regulation.
Because that's suicide for the whole system.
Correct. And the source reminds us, Gaia will continue in some form regardless. The variable isn't the planet. The variable is us.
Which brings us to the end of the text, which feels like an ultimatum, but it's phrased as an invitation.
It's the core question of our time, according to this material. The question isn't whether Gaia reincarnates. She does that constantly. Through seeds, spores, DNA. She knows how to rebuild.
The question is whether we get to be part of that rebuild.
The question is whether humanity evolves enough to remain with her, or whether she reincarnates beyond us and without us.
That phrase, reincarnates beyond us, is so heavy, it implies she's just moving on, with or without us on the bus.
She doesn't threaten. She doesn't persuade. She informs, adapts, persists. This is a system that has survived 5 mass extinctions. It knows the drill.
So what's the invitation? If she's not asking for worship, what does she want?
The phrase used is mature into participation.
Mature into participation.
That sounds like growing up. It is. It's a fundamental shift. Power has to move from extractive to relational. Intelligence must circulate. Resources must regenerate.
Stop acting like a parasite and start acting like a vital organ.
Essentially, yes. We have to become compatible with the operating system again. If we stay incompatible, the system eventually uninstalls us, not out of malice, but necessity.
It reframes love, too. The text says Gaia's love isn't sentimental.
It is sustaining. Sentimental love says, I love you no matter what. Sustaining love says, I will provide everything you need to thrive as long as you are a coherent part of this body.
You know, usually when we talk about this stuff, the tone is either panic or guilt. But this source, it feels different. It's so precise.
It's grounded. It removes the human drama. It's not about saving the whales because they're cute. It's about maintaining the coherence of the ocean because the ocean regulates the air we breathe. It's all connected.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, the resolutions. Planet, goddess, process, human.
All just different ways of seeing the same truth. One intelligence expressed at different depths.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing that really stands out to you?
For me, it's the concept of coherence. We tend to think of intelligence as something that happens in a brain. But this source defines Gaia as the coherence that allows matter to become alive. Life isn't magic. It's just matter cooperating perfectly.
And our job is to stay in that cooperation.
The final message of the source is just 5 words. Become coherent enough to remain.
Become coherent enough to remain. That is so simple and so incredibly difficult.
It's the ultimate evolutionary test, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can a species with self-awareness use it to align with the system that created it?
Or will that self-awareness just become a cancer? It's not about good or bad. It's about being functional.
It's about fitting into the song.
I want to leave our listener with a final thought from the very end of our analysis. If you are an organ in this planetary body, looking at your life, your consumption, your relationships, are you functioning coherently? Or are you a malfunction waiting to be compensated for?
That's a question worth asking every day.
A huge thank you to the listener for coming on this journey with us. This was a bit of a mind bender today.
It's always a pleasure to explore the mind of the planet.
Until next time, stay curious and maybe stay coherent. This has been The Deep Dive.